Vehicle wraps, you mess up one panel, you lost all your profit. So we need to focus on what we're profitable at and what we're best at.
How you respond to situations where you've messed up, that's where the true positive word of mouth comes from.
So this huge problem went from like, oh my God, we're going out of business, to like, oh, we need to find one customer.
Hey, I have 50 shirts that I bought already. Well, you're going to have a hard time finding a shop that'll do it. Turns out that they actually will just order the shirts from us and we'll end up printing them. So instead of saying no immediately, we try to dig in a little bit.
Where everything is automated, and you can have one person run that screen room and feed 5 to 6 autos. And that seems like a daunting task because you're doing a ton of screens. But if you have this rotation and this flow to how you do things, you just kind of go to station and you just keep making this cycle.
It doesn't even feel like a job. I get to talk to cool people that are using cool machines to make cool art, put it on t-shirts that can go around and do whatever they need to do.
You don't want to burn all your cash all summer long and then have no cash flow in the end. And I think that's what something like COVID taught all of us, is like, we can't expect tomorrow to be as good as it was today all the time. We need to plan ahead for the future.
Know your numbers. Let's kick us off, Nate. All right?
Sure.
What changes made the biggest differences for you? You talked earlier about your team going from small to medium size. What were the biggest changes, and what can you kind of walk us through the biggest challenges or the things that surprise you the most through that change?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that surprised me the most was how easy it was to go, and I know it's not supposed to be easy, but easy it was to go from the way that we operated, which was kind of seat of your pants every day. We had all the knowledge in our head, to actually writing down the processes that we did, and creating our first system, which then led to our second system and third system. And even just starting out with writing down, like, what's our opening procedure? Like, that was the first one that we wrote. What do you do when you turn on the lights, turn on the machines, things like that? Then closing procedure. What do we do next? And I think that just getting into that mindset and starting that path was really what progressed us forward pretty quickly and on a pretty smooth path. I think we've definitely had a lot of hiccups in the growth, but it's helped us stay grounded doing that.
What do you track? Oh, yeah, please.
So, I started off at a younger age. And
One of the hard lessons I had to learn was to not trust your gut. So I started off running my business, trusting my gut. It feels like we sold a lot more. Even though if I did something at a trade show, it felt like we sold more than we actually did when I actually got down to the numbers, and I learned to trust spreadsheets and ROIs. Did you experience that? And at what point growing did you get to that point?
Yeah, we have always pretty much broken even, at least for the past 10 years when I've actually been tracking these things. It wasn't until 2 or 3 years ago that we figured out what our break-even number was for every month, which is really a percentage because of how these businesses operate with however much sales we're doing, since we're buying the product as we're selling it. That was when I stopped trusting my gut, and I was like, oh, there's an actual number every month that I can look at and be like, if we're not selling more than this, then we're losing money. That was definitely the biggest thing that, shocked me.
Yeah, it's they talk about with small businesses that once you make it to 3 years, now you're in business in screen printing. Those 3 years can get away quick. Yeah, what you just said is so common to so many other people. Like, we broke even for a while, then we learned.
I didn't even think about the break-even number that I had to hit. I don't know why. It was either I never learned it, I was never told about this number, but it has become just the most important number in our business, really.
Sorry. And so you big. Guys, it's a family business story. We call him Chase Butts.
Nice to see you.
Hey, Paul, just couldn't get jobs out on time. Start losing track. Spoiler, the you're going through what you promised when you're out. Yeah, or at least anyway.
I'm finished, dude. I can.
I'm really interested, Dylan. What do you track?
You're really interested in me, Brandon? Thank you. I think for most of us too in this room, myself, like I went 15 years by the seat of my pants. I never looked at numbers. I didn't care. Me and my buddies started the shop, back 2009-ish. And every year it was up. Like, we got some more customers and then we got word of mouth. We got some more customers and it was up and up every year. I never looked at anything. I just saw if there was money in the bank account and was like, cool, we're good. People got raises by the seat of my pants if I thought they were cool or not. Nothing really mattered. And then to be honest, like I said, I made some mistakes. I learned, like Colin was saying, rob Peter to pay Paul sometimes in the winter months or whatever. And then something happened a couple of years ago where it was COVID and our entire industry got shook up. We all had this flux like right after COVID of like, oh, we're super busy. We're the busiest we've ever been. We were booked up like 6 weeks and I was like, what is happening? The world was ending, but now we're really busy. And then after that, the floor came out and now it's weird. And then the first thing I thought of was like, oh, I should probably know my numbers. And this is at 17 years in. I was like, hey, I should probably know my numbers. And then I started tracking everything. I started tracking all my expenses. I started tracking, what it costs to do this. And I was finding that I had like 10 Adobe subscriptions. And it was like, why do I have this? And why am I paying this for that? And whatever. So going through all those numbers, now I actually know, and I don't have that stress or anxiety every night when I go to bed of like, what's coming out of the bank account tomorrow, what's what. But then once I really started diving into those numbers, I started tracking stuff in the shop as well. And knowing all these things, I was like, why did I not do this from the beginning? Like, this is the dumbest thing ever to not do it. But again, a lot of us are just punk kids that come from a band and hang out with our friends. And we print t-shirts on the side. Printing t-shirts for me was a fun thing to do so I could keep all my friends employed and we could hang out all day, every day. But yeah, the importance of knowing numbers, if I could go back and tell my younger self something, it would be to know those numbers up front. And I would have made a lot more, stronger decisions. And luckily the one thing I had for myself was I bought everything in cash in the beginning. I own my shop. I own all my equipment. I don't have any debt and any of those kind of things. That was a smart thing I did. But if I didn't do that and I got loans for everything, I would have been in a lot of trouble. So definitely the biggest thing is to know all those expenses and know what's going to come out of your account the next day and just kind of be smart about it. But that was my real world experience was, things are good when they're good, but when they're not, you're screwed. And we all know friends and shops that have kind of gone under over the last couple of years or sold or something because they didn't know their numbers and it caught up with them.
Are we the same person? I think we have such a similar story. Yeah.
I want to know from a production side, what are some of the biggest or top numbers to measure on the production floor? I guess we'll start with Kevin. What do you see? You said you've been to 2,000 shops? How many shops have you actually been to?
I can't count that high. I'm not good at math.
Okay, you're going to talk about numbers? Ironic.
I mean, standard operating procedures, as you guys had mentioned, is one of the things as you grow, you implement those standard operating procedures, because a lot of shops that I'll go into, you can go back into the screen room and they're doing something different all the time. So they're reclaiming screens. You see a guy who's just dumping his sponge into this bucket and he's just slopping chemicals all over the place. He doesn't have any sort of standard operating procedure. So without that, you don't know how much your screen costs, every single screen. By really dialing in to know this is how we do everything, this is how much emulsion's on a screen, this is how much your emulsion costs, this is how much reclaim chemistry it costs to do one screen. Without knowing those numbers, you have no idea what to be charging your customers as your screen costs. So you really have to be able to dial in that, and it's different for every shop, but it really goes back to those standard operating procedures. Once you implement those, now you can go back and say, this is how much a bucket of emulsion costs. I can coat 80 screens, and now I know 80 screens the way I'm coating screens. And you can really dial into your specific costs. But I think that's one of the biggest pitfalls that I've seen for so many screen printing shops is they don't really dial into those costs. Some people are really good at screen printing, but not so great at running a business. I've seen it a million times with these screen printing shops, right? But Dylan, as you said, you can wave your hand now, but you're not the same person that you were when you first started. You had mentioned the growth that you've had personally and what that's done for your company. And that's the same thing that you really have to think about going forward with all of your businesses as well. But you have to know what you're doing, how you're doing it, and how much you're using for each one of those procedures to be able to really know what those numbers are.
I think it's important also to let the employees who do that job help develop the SOPs and not be the boss that sits in the office and goes out and like, this is how we should do it. The owner of the shop I worked at was really great at allowing us to have say, or like if we wanted to make a change, she would always listen to us and let us advocate for ourselves. I mean, we had to be informed and it makes sense, but I think that helps with employees being happier overall if they're in charge of their own destiny and someone from an office isn't bossing you around when they don't even know what you do every day.
Yeah, I agree with that, but there's also, like you had mentioned, you have to be informed because there's so many times that these people are, it's on the job training. They learn from the person that did it before them, and they have no idea why they do it the way that they're doing it. It's just that Bob did it this way before you got that job, and that's the reason why you're doing it that way. So it's that it becomes that game that you played in grade school, the telephone game. You whisper something in the ear next to you, and it goes all the way around, and by the time it gets back to you, it's nothing like how it started. So you lose some of that information.
From the education perspective, from my background, when someone trains someone, they generally transpose around 80% of the information. And what I always say is that the remaining percentage to 100 is where education comes into play. So even if you're sending them somewhere and they learned a bad habit, or if they're paying attention or they're motivated to watch, I don't know, YouTube videos from someone who's done it, they are learning the right way to, or someone comes in and you share with them the correct way that it should be or that it works for other shops better. I think that makes a big difference as well.
Yeah, of course.
Evan's earlier point, when my shop got to the point where we had to consider going from film to CTS, the CTS machine, the computer to screen machine to replace film was $110,000 at that time. How do I justify that? Immediately, most of the sales reps were like, well, how many screens do you burn a day? That wasn't where I was going to gain my profit back. It was the time and setup. So the time that the machine's not moving, when it's not turning, is costing me money more and more. The time that we're registering films on a light table, adding those variables in there, adding shrinkage of the film, when you're exposing, all those things contribute to taking away from my profit. The faster I can get that machine set up, turning, and the job off and out the door and invoice, the more profitable I am. That was key. So there's a lot of intangibles that you don't think about right away. You've got to look at, how far are you traveling from where the film room is to the actual exposure unit area? We started moving departments closer and closer together. So there's overlapping circles, keeping everything efficient. But considering when I was going to spend money, I had to think about all those other things that I'm gaining from that, because it's $110,000. That's a really nice car instead of a machine that I have to maintain all the time in air conditioning in its own room by itself. But keep in mind those little things that get away from me, the little efficiencies that aren't as obvious.
You have one back there.
Okay.
So at the risk of sounding like the guy who just wants to tell me how to do my business, what are some strategies for someone that, like a single or kind of person that can find time or make time to implement finding the numbers together? I've been going for almost 3 years now. Not quite the seeking up that my friend over here might. Yeah, like finding the time to do that is simple. Your study screen, you to replay, all that stuff. So like, how would you guys prevent it if you were doing what we did?
I actually grabbed the mic because I hear them talking about like getting numbers for every single process in your shop, and like it does become so daunting. What we do is we just look at our cost of goods as one number, and we're like, that's it. That's our cost of goods that we need to focus on. Then we figure out what our bottom or our break-even point is, and that tells us what our sales goal is. And from there, we know that every day we have to produce this much. So our sales has to be, or our production has to meet our sales. So if we're doing, $1,000 a day in sales, we need to be outputting $1,000 a day. And that's how I simplified it for myself, because getting lost in the numbers that these guys are talking about, I think is great. But when you're a small team and you're only like a couple people, I think it can be really helpful to just have one number to focus on once you figure out your cost of goods.
I think to your point though too is it's like when you're smaller and you're single shop, like single person in your shop or whatever, you're kind of running around all the time being like, oh well, I'll coat screens tonight, I'll come back after work, I'll do this, I'll answer emails instead of sleeping, like all these other things. I think it's important to just kind of, they say know your numbers, but just track like how long it should take to do this job. And also too, in this day and age now, there's a lot of ways to automate things. You can automate things with equipment, you can automate things with AI tools or software or all these other things. And like, we always talk about on the show, like say you are printing for the morning and then you're like, oh, I got to go do SEPs and I got to burn screens and all these other things. It's like, okay, well, if you knew your numbers and you knew what you could make in a day printing by yourself, you would know, okay, I can't afford, say, like Graphic Source or something to do the art and SEPs for you. And you're like, okay, well, this makes sense. I can afford this, rather than just being like, oh, I don't know what else to do. I'm just going to pay $2,000 a month to have somebody do it. But can you afford it or not? It's the same with buying equipment. People jump right into like, well, I need to own an auto. I need to do this. I need to do that. And then they go out and get a loan for $200,000 that they can't pay on. People also make these decisions in a bubble in the summertime when they're super busy. And then a month later, they have no work and they're like, cool, I still have a $4,000 a month payment. Or they want to jump right into the storefront shop with all this other stuff. And it's like, now you have storefront you got to pay for, you have the equipment, you have employees. You buy an auto, you're not running it by yourself. You're hiring another person, you're getting an air compressor, you're getting a chiller, you're getting an auto reclaim, like all these different things. Can you actually afford it? And I think that's the problem. A lot of us jump into this like new shiny object syndrome thing of like, well, I need the next toy. I think the smarter decision is to sit on it and decide, like, do you actually need it? Can you afford it? But to step back a little bit, John Earmuffs, is like nowadays with knowing your numbers in the shop, one of the things that I've found now is with bringing on stuff like DTF or finding a partner that can handle certain things, I look at it and I'm like, okay, well, I know my numbers and I know it's profitable. If it's under this piece count, let's do it digitally. If it's over this piece count, it's going to be screen printed. If it's over 10 colors, do we screen print it or do we do digital? Like there's all these different things now that if you know your numbers, you're going to know what's profitable. The biggest mistake a lot of shops do is they go online and they're like, well, how much is custom ink charging? And like, I'll do 10 cents cheaper. That's like the first fastest way to go out of business is just race to the bottom constantly. Like, oh, I'll just copy so-and-so's pricing chart and I'll do it 10 cents cheaper. And then you're like, why are we doing jobs for like $1.85? That's the biggest thing where I find knowing my numbers is like, not necessarily categorizing every part of the shop and knowing, oh, it takes me 36 steps to go here and I need to write that down in an SOP. Like that stuff doesn't actually matter because it's like, I mean, it matters. I don't want to say it doesn't, but like you can go too far into the weeds with it. Like the question is, what do you do with those numbers at the end of the day? Like you can have all this data, but what are you actually going to do with it? I think the biggest thing is keeping the lights on and being able to live to the next day and live in the slow months. You should be saving money all summer long when you're busy so that you can live through the winter. You don't want to burn all your cash all summer long and then have no cash flow in the end. And I think that's what something like COVID taught all of us is like, we can't expect tomorrow to be as good as it was today all the time. We need to plan ahead for the future.
Awesome. What I'd like to say about numbers, we track a lot of things at Ryonet. Okay, we have a lot of metrics, a lot of key performance indicators and all the other fancy words, and we can measure everything. I mean, we could measure the seconds it took for someone to go to the bathroom if we wanted to. And you're right. If you don't do anything with it, then what are you doing? Nobody does math for fun. Well, some people do. But the point I'm making is if you have a team of people and they're not a part of the numbers, so they don't know where they come from, there's nothing intimate about it, and it doesn't change them at all, right? And then the worst thing to do is to argue over them. If I'm like, something that Ryan did early on was, because I track things. I've always just inherently tracked things, measured stuff. That's how I become, understanding and confident with what I'm doing. That's how that's how I get by risky things, is if I can look at stuff and go, okay, it mathed out, it's okay. But Ryan challenged me with, well, does the team know those numbers? Do they know where they come from? Does it change the way that they approach stuff? And it's like, it's good stuff, because otherwise it's just analysis paralysis and fun. You don't get paid to run numbers. Yeah?
Basically, round one, a single owner operator. The first thing you need to know is how much does it cost you to operate your shop per day, meaning the rent, whatever the overhead is. And then after the profit, what did you end up paying yourself per hour? And that's the big indicator. Okay, something has a change here. I'm not paying, I could make more at McDonald's. Why am I doing this? Am I doing this to own a shop, grow a shop, or buy the property the shop's in? There's just those early questions to figure out.
And if you're early on to this, I want to say, if you're early on to this, the human condition, we all go way too far when we start things, right? Okay, so if you're like me, we're not doing it at all. So we're like, we got to track stuff. And then you just go way too far and overcompensate, and you find and then what you do is you end up balancing back out. What should we do? And you'll find that happy medium. So if I have any advice on that, it's be more simpler, like measure less than you actually want to. And I saw you.
I was just going to say too, after talking to tons of shops, I think one of the biggest things is people, their first investment they always want to do is the press. Like, oh, I need a better press. I need a bigger auto. I need whatever. And
The right answer.
Okay, I don't work for Rock. I can say whatever the I want. So many people overlook the screen room. And to me, that would be the first thing I would automate if I was a manual shop, whatever, is automate the screen room. Get an auto coder should be your first purchase. And then something like CTS or even auto reclaim in some capacity or something like that, because we spend so much time messing around with screens and like having issues on press. Like even just the autocoder, it's like, okay, now you have an autocoder, you can test your EOM, you know what your stencil thickness is, you know how the prints are going to be like. And then if you get something like CTS, you have no more glass on your exposure unit. You're dealing with a lot less pinholes, a lot less registration issues on press. Like you're going to save so much time in the day with registration and setups and getting jobs done because you had everything prepped before it even got to the press. So many people are like, oh, I need to get a second or third auto. And I'm like, cool, you're still using film. And your hand cleaning and coating screens. I was like, if you did those faster, you could probably get 4 more jobs done on your one auto a day than you did beforehand. You're welcome, Kevin.
So you're talking about investing in certain things, certain pieces of equipment at certain times. And a lot of people talk about ROI. A lot of people understand what ROI is. But in your experience, what is the cost of inaction? Have you ever measured or even spoken about, what am I losing by not doing this, as opposed to what do I gain by doing it? I think that's something that people don't ask themselves enough. They're like, well, why would I invest in this thing? I'm doing it this way, it's fine. But it's like, well, but if you, to your point, an autocoder, CTS, what have you, the cost of inaction is greater than the return on inaction.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I think the reality for me with a lot of the purchases is getting rid of human factor and things. So like with the automated screen room, to me, it's like, okay, well, I can train somebody to come in here and hit 3 green buttons. Like, not that they don't need the knowledge or whatever with the products, but again, they can walk in and see a blank screen, fill a trough with emulsion, put a screen in, hit the green button, take it out, dry it, go to the next thing, put it in the CTS, hit a button from a folder, burn a screen, take it to the other thing. That guy's out sick or whatever for a couple of days. Cool. Daryl's filling in. He can do the exact same thing, go in and hit buttons. And also, say I had a team of people before where I had 2 guys cleaning screens. I had someone, developing screens, doing all these things. Now I can have one person run that whole department and they feel great about their job because they're not standing in a washout booth all day. They clean some screens. They go back to the darkroom. They coat some screens. They're burning screens while they're coating, all these things. And then I can take the people that I had doing the extra labor, go out and help them pull shirts or be on press or count shirts in or something like that. So a lot of these things for me isn't necessarily like, okay, well, what is the ROI specifically on this? It's okay, cool. I can move people from one part to another. And then I can also run a shop on less people. The name of the game for me has always been, you go to these trade shows and stuff, Ryan will know, you go, and the first question a lot of these people ask you is like, what's the square footage of your shop? And like, how many autos do you got? How many employees you got? And these people will be like, oh, I got 1 million square feet and 9,000 employees. I'm like, I'm way more impressed on the shop who does $4 million with 2 autos and has 7 employees. To me, I'm like, you figured it out. Like, I'm not impressed by the people that are like, I have 40 employees, my hair's on fire, and I feed the beast all day long, and I have this massive thing I got to do. So to me, it's automating where you can and just learning your craft and being really good at it.
Yeah, to add to that too, it's as far as automation goes, it's about the consistency that you're putting into things, right? Consistency of processes. So now you know what that screen actually is going to perform like. So if you're hand coding screens, every one of those screens, if we were to measure it, I'm guessing are going to be a different thickness. If you're using an autocoder, you're going to have the consistency from screen to screen to screen. So now I know that your exposure times can be consistent as well. Because if you're hand coding screens and your EOM is varying from screen to screen, that means some of your screens are probably going to be overexposed and some are going to be underexposed, leading you back to probably having to reshoot screens, which adds into more costs that people don't think about.
To touch on that point, we are the shop that prints film and hand coats screens, and we're having all the problems that Dylan just pointed out. Well, we also ran the numbers, and I know you're talking about numbers, but like, you know, spending $75,000 on a laser to screen would take us like a decade to recoup, and
Yeah, but you spend that $70,000 on an employee for a year and a half.
I think that there's more things to add into that you're not factoring into that overall ROI, right? So there's intangible things. Yep, just like Dylan says, you can pay for an employee.
I mean, if you're paying, you know, those kind of prices, you're paying your employees really well. But I'll also say, you know, there's all those intangible things that you're not probably factoring in, as well as, you know, consistency and the quality of your screens. And, you know, there's so much things like John had mentioned, setup times on press with an LTS. I just did an install for a customer. The very first job that we did was a 10-color job. It was with an M&R. It was on a tri-lock system, and we put all 10 of those screens in, and we didn't even touch the micro registration on there. We just ran the job. So this was a job that typically would take them well over an hour to set up. This job took them 10 to 15 minutes to set up, which, I mean, now you can get more jobs out every day and be more profitable as well.
And how much did you pay those 3 employees to set up that press for that hour and a half? To me, it's big. It's the registration of the job, and it's also issues on press. Again, if you're hand coding screens and you're running a discharge job and your screen's breaking down, or you're doing a plastisol job and you got pinholes everywhere, and then how many of us have done a whole job and then we find out that there was a pinhole on the edge of the pallet where you couldn't see it when you were looking down on it, and now you got to blow out 100 shirts, all these things. That's the stuff where I'm like, okay, that's worth the automation, because now I don't have to think about that ever again. Like, one of the things when we got CTS that we didn't even think about was, oh, we don't need registration marks anymore. Now I don't need to use the tape for those registration marks. I don't have to remember to tape off the registration marks. I don't have these issues. The only time we're using registration marks anymore is if it's a sim process job, just to make sure. But that was one little stupid thing that we didn't even think about, and it saves us so much time from going around on a rolly cart under the press and taping off registration marks.
that's really cool. Like, yeah, I didn't even think about the registration marks.
Think about until you get there, and then you're like, I'm saving so much time, and then this piece of equipment, this autocoder or whatever, paid for itself so fast because now I don't have those issues anymore.
Yeah, the one thing I do hear from not just you but other people is autocoder should be the first thing. Yeah.
No, I mean, when I'm sitting to a shop, I'm usually sitting to solve a problem, and I have to remind people it's screen printing, not press printing. And then a popular thing that I say a lot is like, I don't care about the press. As long as the press will register, I need to make good screens. I need to cure them well in the dryer. So the 2 most important machines to me in the press are the exposure unit, and a shop with the exposure unit and the dryer. If you don't have shirts that are going to hold up, if you can't burn screens accurately so they set up quickly, what's the point? You're losing money. I mean, I think about as soon as the job is burned, the taxing gear is on. Money's slipping away, your profit's slipping away. We're trying to get that off the press as soon as possible.
Yeah, but how many screens are you doing a day? Well, I mean, like on average.
We have days often where we're doing 5 to 10, 12 color jobs, and that's a lot of screens. And then we'll have a day where it's nothing but 1 color, and we'd add 12 to 20 screens. But again, to me, I don't even think about that. I think about the quality of life. So say the first question Kevin will ask you when you're trying to buy an auto reclaim is like, how many screens are you doing a day? It's like, I don't know, dude, 50, 100. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be. But you know what doesn't happen now is my person doesn't have to sit there huffing chemical and scrubbing screens all day long. They finish a job, they take the tape off, they run it through the machine, they walk away and they do a different job.
Or even
That's to me is what it's for, because if you have someone just cleaning screens all day, that's the first job where they're like, I hate my life, and they want to quit. You know, we've had people where I've had, you know, they put in 2 weeks notice at another job and we wait the 2 weeks for the person because we want them. And he walked in, he worked maybe 15 minutes and came into my office and said, I will blow my brains out if I have to do this all day, every day. And then he left. And that is a true story. That happened. And it's like, he probably wouldn't have done that if we had an auto reclaim where you could just throw the screens through and they came out the other side.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with the automation. So I've got a lot of customers that have a fully automated system. They've got auto reclaim, coder, LTS system, auto developer, everything is automated. And you can have one person run that screen room and feed 5 to 6 autos. And that seems like a daunting task because you're doing a ton of screens. But if you have this rotation and this flow to how you do things, you just kind of go to station and you just keep making this cycle. You put a screen on the auto reclaim and walk away. It's not like you're babysitting that machine. It doesn't take time. All you're doing is putting the screen on there and just walking away. And it's going to do all of that for you. Then you go on to the next task where you're, you know, using LTS and everything else. Using
Use the screens is also the one who makes the screens, then they have a better understanding of how important cleaning the screens are. Like, obviously cleaning feels like grunt work, but it's incredibly important, and they just have a full picture of how important that cleaning is when their job is also making the screens.
the most important job.
I just had a call with Kevin a couple days ago where I said, hey, I'm thinking about hiring my son to work for me, and this will be his first job or whatever. And I said to Kevin, I'm thinking about having clean screens. He's like, really? That's the most important job in the shop, and you're going to have your son do it? So
Give your son more credit than that.
yeah, I know what it take. But I'm just saying, like, it goes to the reality of that's how important the screens are. I know this topic was supposed to be about knowing your numbers, but I think
this is awesome.
I think most of it is knowing your numbers so that you can get to that point where buying these automated pieces of equipment or just running your shop. Like, honestly, for me, the knowing your numbers is most important so that I can sleep at night and not wake up in a cold sweat. Like,
when you don't know your numbers, you look and you might misinterpret your bottleneck or the Herbie in your shop. Because if you don't know the numbers, it looks like the person moving the fastest isn't slowing you down, but that might be different based off the numbers that you'd be measuring. So all of you have a Herbie, by the way. You all have a bottleneck in any operation. Sometimes it's Herbie, it's actually a person, but oftentimes it's a process or a piece of equipment where the bottleneck.
What is a Herbie?
A Herbie is your slowest. What you're smiling like you've read the goal. Have you read the goal? Have you read the goal? Herbie, please. Definition.
The slowest employee.
It's not always an employee, though. It's the slowest element of your... Okay? Raise your hand if you've read the goal. Please do. It's a great read. Yeah.
You can learn about Herbie, I guess.
Please do.
To the numbers, well, I had an epiphany, I think about 10 years ago. We hired this guy named Jim Rice. He worked for Caterpillar, and we hired him because he was a lean expert, and we tried to implement lean 3 or 4 times. Avient actually sent a couple of our team members to Lean Academy, and we got 6 Sigma black belt, which thank you very much. We're still using that today. But we were having a hard time implementing it because, to Brandon's point earlier, it's like just numbers versus actual thing. What are we doing with them? Why are we doing this? And Jim walks out and he walks to our shipping department and he just asked me questions like, Ryan, do you play sports? I'm like, yeah, I play sports. I love sports. He's like, how do you know if you're winning in sports? So I was like, oh, look at the scoreboard. Like, oh, a scoreboard. Oh, how does your shipping team know if they're winning? You know, how does your press ops know if they're winning? It's like, is there a scoreboard? Is there an easy way to do with the numbers? I liked what you guys said earlier about SOPs. Your SOPs are like your game, not your game plan, but like your playbook. Those are your SOPs. The numbers of the scoreboard, they will tell you if your SOPs are working or not, and then if you need to add, upgrade the shop, add automation, hire a person. I think the most important time to measure your numbers is when you're by yourself. I run a lot, and when I run without my watch, I don't really have a good run. But when I'm running with my watch, I'm
Not even run.
yeah, I know. When you're looking at your watch, you're like, oh yeah, I need to.
I've driven home to get my watch when I forgot it if I'm going to go for a walk because I'm like, it doesn't count if I don't have my watch.
Yeah, exactly. It's so much more effective if you're just measuring yourself, and so it can make all the difference to yourself, your business, and your team.
To someone made a point earlier, and I was going to talk about it. And the lesson that I learned, again, like 4 of my best friends work for me, but then we have other employees as well. One lesson I learned here within the last 2 years is to share those numbers and share that knowledge with your team, and don't leave them in the dark. Don't just do this stuff in the office like the Wizard of Oz, because they don't know what's going on. They don't know if they should be better or faster or slower or Herbie or whatever the hell.
What happened?
Yeah, well then I'm stressed out because of the numbers, and then they come in and say, hey, I'm going to put my 2 weeks in because I feel like you're pissed at me. And it's like, I'm not pissed at you. I'm just stressed out because of the numbers. Oh, well, I didn't know. The team always thinks you're in a bad mood or thinks things are going on, but really you're struggling trying to keep the team going and keep everybody alive. And
We talked about on one of your podcasts.
Yeah.
The worst thing is the closed door singer.
yeah,
Like,
and I had that. I had my door closed for quite a while, and then I learned hard when my best friends came in and we had a deep cry session together about just they didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what was important or what they needed to do. And then as soon as they knew the numbers, everybody rallied, and like the morale and the shop culture went back to being good. So share those numbers is all.
We want to hear from you. Does anybody have a lingering question on the tip of your tongue? Does anybody have something? Yes, Allie.
I'm a manual screen printer. I do it on my own. So what I'm hearing a lot of, though, is we're talking about screens. We're talking about screen prep. We're talking about how they affect, the rest of the system. I teach small classes, and when I teach classes, I always tell people that getting through the screens are the hardest part. It sounds like that's what everybody else is experiencing too, that a lot of it is getting to that point. Do you guys seem to feel that way? Is that how you guys feel? Is that how the room feels too? Is a lot of it is getting to your screen, getting your screens perfect so that you can move on? Is that your all's pain point as well? Just kind of curious what people's pain point is.
All of that. I tell everybody the hardest part about screen printing is not the printing. It's all of the prep. It's all of the paperwork, doing the numbers, all of that stuff. So
Yeah, to that point though, you should invest in good screens. Don't buy cheap, crappy screens. Buy good emulsion.
I'll add one more thing too, where we talked about automating, say like an auto coder, how important that is if you're using direct emulsion. We also manufacture capillary film. So capillary film, for somebody that's having difficulty getting the consistency of coating your screens manually, I can teach somebody to use capillary film where your screen is going to be perfect every single time, and I can teach you how to use that in 10 minutes. It's very easy to use. Now, does it cost a little bit more per screen? Yes, but you get the consistency that you're after with that autocoder with maybe a little bit less than having to pay $15,000 for an autocoder. Capillary film is direct emulsion that we've coated for you basically on a carrier sheet. So that carrier sheet, the capillary film gets applied to screen using water, and the water is going to absorb that sheet of emulsion into your screen via capillary action. That's why it's called capillary film. So it's going to be the same thickness every single time, and we coat those from, 15 micron capillary film sheets all the way up to fat film, which is 700 microns for high density.
What did you bring for Friday's class?
So Friday's class, we do have 400 micron fat film, which fat film isn't technically a capillary film. So you actually have to apply it using direct emulsion. It's a little bit different of a process, but capillary film, the thickest that we typically will go with a true capillary film is about 70 microns thick.
Yeah, I was curious, talking about numbers and measuring things, and you guys have all been in a lot of shops. And so what was the most kind of impressive KPI that you've seen someone tracking in their shop, production related?
There's a shop in the Midwest that if you walked into, it's big. It's not impressive. It's the employees are not impressive. And it's mostly a manual shop. But they pay, minimum wage, but then you're incentivized by how fast your setups are, how fast your breakdowns are, and what your quality is. Above each pod, they have some television screens up there, and they're showing the metrics. When there's an iPad at each screen or at each press, and they hit a button when they're doing their setup. They hit another button when the setup's over. They hit a button when they print, when they finish, and the manager's displaying all of those setup times. And it drives competition, but two, you have the incentive to make more than the $9 an hour they're starting people with. But if they have to zip tie an iPad to a little red wagon to create an efficiency, that's what they do. It doesn't look cool, but they also barcode every screen. And when I sat down the first time with this shop, this is before Claude, before people were building their own shop software, he could tell you anywhere in that shop that a screen was, and they probably had 10,000 screens. It's a massive shop. Doesn't look amazing, but it's super efficient. There's floor managers. I think there's 3 total. They go around pod to pod, and they're basically just watching them. They're the ones collecting those metrics, evaluating the metrics, guiding, like, okay, here, you need to raise your off contact, coaching as they go, but also reminding them, like, hey, you need to keep an eye out for pinholes here. They're talking to the ladies at the end of the bell. They're like, all right, are you looking for the right things in QC? There are managers walking the floor. That's their whole job. In really big shops, there's usually one print engineer that just walks around and just gathers every bit of information. He listens. If he hears a press not running, he runs over to find out what's going on there.
I think the most impressive number story that I have is when we helped Liquid Graphics incorporate 2 shops. So they took 23 presses, took it down to 15 presses. They bought a company out. And we were great salespeople. We're like, these Rock Eco presses can print all your shirts, no problem. And they were needing to print about 70,000 shirts a day at the time. And when they plugged the presses in and they started their first shift, the first day they printed 6,500 shirts. And the second day they printed 4,800 shirts. And the third day they printed 5,000 shirts. And then Josh, the owner, called me. He's like, Ryan, what the fuck? These rock presses suck. And I'm like, oh no, like what's going on? Like, what do we do? I'm like literally turning red. And this Jim Rice guy was our VP of operation at the time. He's like, I can help. I'm like, you don't know anything about screen printing. Like, you just started here. He's like, doesn't matter. So he goes down, puts 2 whiteboards up. Whiteboard number 1 is how many shirts did we print today? Whiteboard number 2 was it was how many shirts a day and what's the backlog? What are we behind? Whiteboard number 2 was what got in the way? What's our issues list from us getting to our goal, to the shirts printed? He spent 6 weeks there, and by the end of 6 weeks, he's not a screen printer, just doing that one and having 2 team meetings every day, just stand-up meetings. They were printing 75,000 shirts a day, and they were caught up with the backlog. And that was just the 2 things that he measured. And so it's super effective. It's so cool to see that in action. And just very simple, just crossing off the issues and then what did it do for our numbers? And they didn't need a fancy software system to do that. I've been to that shop. That's a pretty awesome system they build. Yeah. Yep. It was at the end of the line, between all the dryers. They have 5 dryers. And morning stand-up meeting, end of the day stand-up meeting.
Was that similar to how Latitudes had like their A, Bs, and Cs? So they had each dryer when they're doing their countouts. I think every hour they posted this foliage and different that.
I'm not sure. Yeah, they were just tracking just throughput, and then to Brandon's point earlier and somebody else, I think, Nate, you said it too, simple, like 1 or 2 things that are the most important.
Yeah, the saying there is take your process as simple as possible, but not too simple, right? You don't want to leave out anything important, but you really want to dumb it down. The Beatles, was it Paul McCartney? Guys, bring him back. He said it was something, I'm going to butcher this, but he said, it's easy to write a complex song or to build a complex business. He didn't say that part, but it's hard to build a simple business that's effective. What should you do? That's a masterful thing. It's really hard to do. Okay, that was an awesome first session. We're going to switch up the panel here and see you guys soon. All customers are right? Customers are always right? Yes, they are. Until they aren't, right? Taste. Okay. All right. Thank you, Colin. So good you're here, man. Nice to see you. All right, Ryan. How do you communicate to your team who the right customer profile is for your business? You want to start with that? Is that okay? Yeah. Take it away, man.
Well, how do you know what your right customer profile is? How do you guys know what your right customer profile is? Like, what are some things that tell you who's the right customer? Who's your ideal customer?
I always start with what job we like to print the most. So what garment do you like to print on? What number of colors? How many locations? And then we would drill that into what customers order that the most. And then we would build the profile of that person. So in a former life, I got trained as a value selling trainer. And a part of that was to develop your customer profile. Who are they? Give them a name. How old are they? Are they married? Do they have kids? What are their hobbies? Like, build the more information you have about them, then the more areas you have to target them for marketing, and you know more about them. And then most people are like the 5 people they spend the most time with. So if you get that customer, then you'll get the people that surround them, or, aim for the bullseye, you'll get somewhere on the board. I mean, not me, but most people will get somewhere on the board.
I have a question on that. Follow-up question. So you were talking about creating a customer profile, and you like kind of create like a little, like just a single page profile page, right? Do you use a real person, or do you make a fake person up?
We would make it. So we would look at our current customer base and then figure out which customer aligned with that job. But I would like fully make a fake person up. Yeah. Like AI. It was original AI. I was just make everything up.
Well, it didn't used to be AI made up. I mean, you used to have to go find some weird stranger, right? And be like, Julie likes to play basketball.
We actually, we did this. Jen is our person. Jen is our ideal customer. And we modeled Jen after a real person that we had in our minds. Like, I think it's probably somebody that a lot of our team like had known, or like, we're like, oh, we really like working with this customer. And so we didn't know all of their hobbies and things like that, but we made them up. And it's really crazy because like a few years later, we just had a lot of Jens as customers. Like, they just happened. We obviously did other stuff to get there, but yeah, I mean, it kind of manifested it.
I would, from a smaller shop's point of view where you're growing, the first thing that we learned was, who do we not want to be our customer? Because when you start, you take everything. You're trying to beat everybody to the bottom, outprice them. And we end up with a person who I'm going to change the name a little bit. His name was Jim Brack. And we came up with this phrase, Brack Attack, because Jim Brack was a contractor. And we thought, all right, contractor is easy. They're providing the art. We're producing less art for them. They're covering the cost of the shirts. So Brack Attack would drop ship all these orders, all in the same boxes. And then I found that my people are separating and unbagging all these jobs. And I'm not thinking about what I'm paying them per hour. So that's taken away from my profit. And I had to have a conversation with Brack Attack and 2 other contractors. And it was one of the best days of my life that I fired 3 customers. It sounds like the worst thing that ever happened. But talked to Jim, and I said, Jim, we're losing time on these. You've got to send these in separate boxes with separate POs and unbag them, or we're not in business. I give you contractor pricing. I've got to make a profit off this. I print t-shirts for a living. You sell t-shirts for a living. I'm not going to do it for free. So Jim didn't take that very well, and I gave her a couple other shops to go to. Went on to those shops. 6 months later, Brack Attack came back ready to play ball. The second person I fired was like, okay, cool. These were good prices. You do good quality. We have a good relationship here. I'm ready to play ball. Third guy, the rich guy, threw a baby fit in my parking lot and then burn out, with his Lexus out of the parking lot. And it was just great to see him go away. I mean, that was a loss of money. So that day that I fired my first 3 customers was when I was really running a business. And then I started looking for things like Lean, 5S, all these things, and then developing who our ideal customer was. Because in the beginning, our ideal customer was a band on tour. That's how we started. That's a terrible fucking customer.
Why?
You've got to drop ship to them on tour.
Some people that is their ideal customer.
Yes, and we know what in particular, and it's killing him. He's not profitable right now. But when you print for bands, they need it. They order 2 days before they go on tour, and it takes me a week to print their order. Then you've got to drop ship along the way, and if it doesn't hit Denver on the right day, now I've got to figure out how to get that from Denver to Salt Lake City in time. So we learned, like, as fun as some of our customers were, it was the volleyball people, it was the fun runs, the 10Ks. That's where we made money. Unfortunately, it wasn't the customers that we want, but it was the ones that paid the bills.
So Nate and then Christina, can you go through your ideal customer profile or pick one, and just for our audience, or just what are some of the things that are on that create that?
Yeah. So Jen has a dog. It's not relevant at all to anything in the sales, but it just personifies her a little bit.
Just say dog and cat people. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Sell to cat people?
No, wait, cut them out completely. No, I am covered in cat hair. If you got close to me right now, you'd see. And she works at a design agency as either a lead designer or assistant to the lead designer, and like is a foodie. Like, there's all these little things that, like, basically we were just describing somebody that we like to work with, that we already know, and we got kind of specific with it, up to like her age, hair color. I don't know. Like, these things weren't relevant, but they turned into our, like, we started to attract those people because we knew, like, oh, our social media marketing needs to appeal to this person. Our website needs to appeal to this person. All these things should be appealing to this person specifically. And we didn't try to branch out to a bunch of different people, just her specifically.
At the time, we sold film. We didn't even have the auto coder yet. We had gone from manual to auto 1 month before COVID. So that was great. Ours was a contractor in our area because single color, like high volume, was where we made our money at that point. So ours was Frank the Tank because we also loved old school. And we identified that he was married and he had 2 kids and what school they went to in our area, and that they played Little League, which we were already a sponsor, but we bumped up our sponsorship. And he drank at Sailfish, and we were making Sailfish merch, but we put like a varsity sign there as well. But it just helped us target, like you're saying, like more. And then we got like a big roofing company that ordered 2,500 shirts quarterly. And then they referred us to their friend and they all wanted hats. And then I built out an online store because then their families wanted shirts to go with it. And so it just kind of it cascaded into more opportunities. But I think identifying, it's easy to pick a customer, but for me, you want to pick someone who does this cool 10-color job and you're maxing out your press every time is challenging. Or do you want to figure out what your team likes to print, what you want to print, what garment do you want to print on? Because then you can identify who the best customer is from that direction.
We're on the same team now, so I'm going to say all made. But Belly Canvas, of course, and all made together. So have any of you ever gone from ideal customer profiles to creating this ideal customer profile and then created a target customer profile from that? And so I was with Printed Threads, one of our partners, Brett, and his shop. It was after COVID. They had gone from like really killing it to like, I think they were down by 35%, and they were like, what's going on? So they're like, we need to find some better customers. And so one thing we did is we did a Pareto. Does anyone know what a Pareto is? So it's called sometimes it's referred to as the 80-20 rule. So you run a sales by customer report. Basically, any system has this, and you just take your top 20% of your customers or your top 80% of revenue, and then start just pulling down the cursor in Excel or Google Sheets until you get to how many customers that is. How many customers create that 80% or that top 20%? And then you go in there and look at them. And what we found at Printed Threads is that their 80% of the revenue was coming from only 5% of their customer base. So a very small number of customers, which means to get back to where they needed to go, they only needed to add one target customer profile per month, just one customer. And so this huge problem went from like, oh my God, we're going out of business, to like, oh, we need to find one customer, just by doing that. And it was a hospital, and Printed Threads started printing band shirts, like, was doing merch stores and stuff like that, and outfitting rodeos and stuff. But it was a hospital, not them. And they they created that. And now they are back to over where they were before, have less customers and way more profitability. So have you, any of you created like target customer profiles to go after?
No.
That was the shop owner. Like that was Chrissy. And then also I ended up leaving to go work at Campus Inc. for a while. So that was more her. No, it's fine. I wasn't really that on, like she was in control of the destiny of the shop more so. I was just throwing ideas at her all the time.
Well, most of you would know the process of divorcing a customer. John just kind of explained he did it 3 in one day. Would you just tell them about the issue and say, you're just not...
Explain to each one. Yeah, I had to remind them. I had to do this when I went to skate shop all the time because kids don't understand why you can't give them a free skateboard. And the parents also can't understand that. So I have to remind them, I sell skateboards for a living. What do you do to pay for your bills? So I had to have that same conversation with these contractors. Like, okay, you sell to cheer teams. You sell to marathons. You sell to breweries. You know what I do? I sell to you. I've got to make a profit. I don't work for you for free. You wouldn't do the same thing. And that logic is a really easy conversation to have with all but one of those guys. So it's just reminding people the humanity side of it. And then when they throw in your face like, well, Custom Ink will do this, like, is that the quality you want? Is that what you're really looking for? One of the big eye-openers for us was, you know, I would rather print death metal shirts all day long, black on black, maybe a little white here and there. But the reality is that we were known for special effects because I didn't know if we were doing good as a shop. The community, the screen printing community did not used to be so open. It was and largely in part by Ryonet that people started speaking to each other. Social media drove that. But before that, if you watch my shop, say you're a screen printer, say there's a door, get out of here. I don't want you to see what I thought I invented. But to find out if we're doing things well, I started entering screen print contests, which meant I was throwing special effects on things. That meant I started attracting a customer base that liked special effects, and that was the Western wear market and churches. The last thing I thought I was going to do was Western wear in churches when I want to do death metal bands. But great customers, ready to spend money, and they want the cool special effects. I mean, you've got to watch what your area is going to dictate towards you and what the evolution of your shop is, but also be aware of like, man, I like printing for those guys, but I have this side hustle where I print puff grip on socks for hospitals. It makes me a ton of money. The profit's crazy. It's not fun. It's boring, but I can zone out and print socks all day long and come back with money. It's just being aware of asking those questions that you really don't want to know. And it's at times like, I want to work with cool, fun people that look like me. Cool, fun people that look like me aren't great business people a lot of times.
I think to your point too, with firing people is once you've fired a few customers, you know, customers may be a problem before they even become a customer. So when they start asking for quotes and things like that, and then they're trying to nickel and dime you and whatever, they become very difficult. We usually tell them that we do not have the capacity at this time to handle that job. Mm-hmm.
Another learning point for me, and as my wife, when she came to work with me, was pointing this out. Like I indulge in what I have fun with. So motorcycle clubs, motorcycle meets, they're coming in and they want cool designs. Like, all right, I got this thing in my head. I want you to figure out what it is. And I want you to make it cool. It's like, all right, so you want me to stress it, put wings on it, right? I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. But in getting to that, I totally lost track of my my thought there. Yeah, never mind. It'll come back.
Dylan has a question.
I don't really have a question, but to your point of the 80-20 was one thing that we've been doing over the last year and a half, 2 years is once we knew what that 80-20 was, we started hitting up those customers more and more often and finding better ways to serve them. One thing we found is we were constantly in this rat race to get another customer, but really we had this awesome bank of customers that already liked us and loved us and trusted us that we could go to them and say, well, what else do you put your logo on? You know, they might come to us for shirts, but they also order stickers. They also order hats. They also order these other things, or just they want more shirts. Like a lot of times we fell victim to just waiting for them to reach out to us and send us an email and say they want to reorder. Whereas now I can reach out to them monthly or every couple of weeks and say, you know, how can I help you get more stuff? Or, you know, not even pitch them on a sale, but just see how they're doing. Send them some cookies, send them a card, reach out to them or go to their event or comment on their posts or something. Like if you know these people are spending a lot of money with you, maybe pay a little extra attention.
I did dig through Dylan's data pretty hardcore too and figured out a pattern of when customers were ordering. And I'm like, maybe, if they ordered and it was a rush order, like maybe you could reach out to them. They're ordering every July and you're kind of dead or whatever. Reach out to them the month before and say, hey, I know you usually order. Make it as easy as possible. This is what you've ordered the last 5 times. Are you interested in re-upping or, where we've got some space in our schedule freed up or something like that?
I think we make a lot of assumptions as companies, like why customers like us or why customers work with us. And if you just throw something out, hey, guess what we're going to do? We're going to throw in an extra 4 shirts. Well, some customers are like, who cares? I don't care about that. But who reaches out, early to help us with our planning? That's a value.
Dylan's point's great. Whenever my sales team would you don't come back with nothing. Like we don't have anything right now. And it's all right, hit the phones, call everybody. And when like January is going to suck, we got to find some people, start calling people in December, like, hey, we're going to have openings, print openings. We have a discounted run, like we can knock off 5% because we'll be slow. If we plan ahead, we can work together. That was really creative for us. I mean, when worst came to worst, I knocked on doors or called people. So I would literally run through the phone book. And at night, when I couldn't sleep, I had door hangers. I went through industrial parks and hung up door hangers everywhere. Like you can mine your customers, but it's just shoe leather. Pick up the phone and then driving around all the businesses.
Don't post on social media anything you don't want to do. You're going to be giving your customers ideas. It's one thing, like if you're proud of something, I feel like you want to post like, oh, this cool print I did, but you're just giving them ideas of like, oh, you want metallic? Cool. And they're like, damn, I don't want to print metallic or puff. Like we had a really difficult time in puff because we're in Florida and it's humid as hell. And Chrissy posted this puff and we had 3 different customers that were like, yeah, puff. And I'm like, oh. So just don't. And we also have a little store up front and we learned not to put puff embroidery up front because that can be difficult too. A lot of logos aren't made for puff and it gave people ideas. So especially social media with algorithms now, post what you like to do, what you want to do, what your target customer would order. And then also to Dylan's point, post other stuff you're putting people's logo on. Maybe they don't know that you can get them pens or cups or whatever else, tote bags, anything.
Yeah, kind of building off of that, I was starting to talk about how I indulged in the customers I like. So what I meant by that was the motorcycle contest comes in. I think one was actually a Baja 500 thing. And I like this guy. He's coming to the shop every other day, changing his design. And I'm not charging him for my time. My wife had to point out, you are losing time. You're not on the floor. You're just playing an Illustrator with this guy. So we had to come up with the rule of you get 3 edits with the design. After that, you're paying hourly. That controlled my customers. You kind of have to manage your customers the way if you have a bad manager, you manage your manager.
I was actually having a coaching conversation with my 17-year-old son who had taken another break from his girlfriend. And he was like, Dad, what's going on? I was like, well, let's sit down and actually list out. You mentioned this earlier. What do you want, in a girlfriend, or what do you want in a future wife? And then what don't you want? That's, let's list that out. By the way, don't tell her any of this because he would probably go to hey, I don't want all these things about you.
Did you create an ideal customer profile for?
Yeah. Well, he's and then, but the most
kind of social media for girlfriend.
But the most important thing, that the third list that he created, was what do you need to be, as a guy or a boyfriend to attract your ideal girlfriend, your ideal customer profile. And so that comes down to this concept called the hedgehog concept, which is from a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. Great book. And it's 3 circles about making yourself the best business. So one circle is, what are you super passionate about? So John was super passionate about death metal shirts. But he wasn't in the second circle is, what can you be the best in the world at doing it, And so maybe he's the best in the world at death metal shirts. But then the third circle is, what can you actually make money doing? What drives your economic engine? And so John's like, well, I'm actually really good. I do like screen printing. It's a geek, I'm a geek screen printer. So doing special effects and entering and winning awards is awesome. And I can be passionate about that too, and I can be actually the best in the world. I'm winning awards doing it, and I can charge more money for it, And so kind of developing yourself as a business of what do you need to be? What's your hedgehog? What can you be the best at? It's not the world, but maybe the best in your area or the best in your niche of the industry. What are you passionate about doing so that you don't get sick of doing it? And then what makes sure that whatever you're doing is profitable.
We live that at my shop. So I try to be everything. When I first started screen printing, like getting a shirt job in the door was amazing. Like I was printing skateboard decks, surfboards, skimboards, skateboards, signs, banners, whatever I could take in. And then eventually as I built up Airship, we screen printed, but we also did vehicle wraps, banners, digital printing, embroidery. We looked at getting into hot embossing. And then finally, after talking to a consultant, pointed out like, where are you really making your money? What are you best at? Oh, we win awards in screen printing. Nobody's giving us awards for vehicle wraps. Vehicle wraps, you mess up one panel, you lost all your profit. So we finally started selling off all the toys that I gained. I'm the worst about wanting new machines. I love machines. It's my favorite thing ever. But we need to focus on what we're profitable at and what we're best at.
It's funny because as you guys were talking, I was thinking we get random questions on the Ryonet phone lines, all sorts. And I used to be like, where are these people coming from? Like, they're what? And then I started realizing about a decade ago, the question that I get when I get those questions now or hear about them is, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? To Ryan's point, like, how do you want your 17-year-old son to be and act and go? And then that's who he attracts. So it is you. It's you putting it out there to the world. Let's talk about word of mouth. How important is word of mouth when earning trust in other customer? And then, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything. Your reputation is everything. I started a company 20 years ago before this one, and everything we put out was absolutely terrible. It was screen printing. Every shirt job that we did, we never had a return customer. I would get extreme anxiety when somebody would contact me to place an order because I knew that they were going to be disappointed in it. And so I had to make the intention after going through a journey and being like, okay, I need to actually start a company with the goal being quality. And from there, everything changed. But up until recently, so with that, we then got return customers every time. Not every time, but a lot of times. And more recently, we've started to ask people, after we send out an order, we'll send them an email and be like, hey, how did it go? Did everything turn out well? If they respond positively, then we send them a link to our Google review. And we say, will you write us a review? And we we don't handwrite, we email personally every one of those emails. We don't send them whatever template email or anything like that. We actually write them out so that the person feels it's genuine. And we read those reviews every week at our team meeting so that everybody making the products actually can see the impact they're having. But that has been absolutely critical for our reputation and making sure that the only good things out there are, the only reviews are good. I guess we haven't got a bad one yet. I'm sure we will. But I mean, word of mouth goes such a long way.
The shop that I worked at had been around for 50 years. So it was all word of mouth. Chrissy and I were both born and raised in the town. We went there when we were in high school to get our Letterman jackets, and she had purchased it from a family as an adult, and then she had grown it into screen printing and a whole thing, a really amazing business. What I found in reflecting back on that time is good jobs will get you some good word of mouth, but how you respond to situations where you've messed up and you fix it and make it right, that's where the true positive word of mouth comes from. That's where, we built the business on integrity, and she's done a great job with that. And I took her lead on all of that, and it was so important to us, especially we're in a smaller town, that it was so much more meaningful to make something right, even if obviously it cost us a bunch of money. But in the long run, it made us money because people in our town like to talk, they yap, and the ones who are disgruntled or unhappy yap the loudest and the most. So Obviously, there are some times when we just couldn't make it right. And those people who are complaining, people are probably used to them complaining. So maybe they carry a little less weight. But in most situations, we would do whatever we could to make things right.
When my wife left her CEO position at a trading company, she came to help me get my head out of my ass at my company. You know, I was just kind of falling into success, but not understanding it. And she found two things. For every satisfied customer, we gained about 3 new customers. And then our most loyal customers were not the ones who had perfect jobs, the ones where we fucked up and we fixed it. There was one job where I fucked up 800 shirts and I ate it. And, you know, I ate it, delivered to the customer at a loss, and then they never left us after that point. So when things are going perfect, that was great. They just expected perfect. But when we had a problem and we did our best to fix it and really bought them in, now they're a part of the family. Now they're checked in.
Hey, if you ever mess up a job and it happens to be on well insured, just email me and I'll try to hook you up and make the loss a little bit better for you. I get like a certain budget and I'm happy. I'd rather spend it on that than spend it sending some bullshit samples to someone who doesn't care. So
I'm only going to print on Bella Canvas from
hell yeah. My job is done.
To reiterate what they're saying, like, we will take responsibility for almost anything. And it goes such a long way when a customer, we've had a customer that we've messed up. They send us very complex jobs and something inevitably goes wrong with them because they're so complex. But because we make it right every time, they love us. They talk about us all the time.
How many customers you get though?
Oh, a ton. Yeah, they're fantastic.
I think to that point too is working to make it right for them if they messed up. Like if it was their issue and you are still willing to help them, like that, they already feel shame and embarrassment perhaps, like they overlooked a spelling or something and you're willing to go out of your way to help them in that moment, like that is where loyalty is really built. Like the redemption and being like, yeah, no big problem. Like, we'll take care of it. We'll help you out. Like we make mistakes too. Like that is everything.
It's not your fault. Yeah, it's not your company's fault, but it's still your responsibility. It's pretty rad there. I hear the folks talking about this, and I think of Power of Moments. Is everybody familiar with that? There's a book called Power of Moments, and it's like, what do your customers actually remember, right? We all go to Disneyland. You'll go 5 days. You're going to remember the worst thing that happened, you know, or the best thing that happened. That's why they want to take a picture at the end of the Splash Mountain. Am I still in modern times here? But they take the picture right there, so you put it on the fridge, and then you come back next year because everybody was just, you know, not waiting in line, sweating, and all that. But as your company gets better, the power moments in the beginning is organic. You mess up, right? You mess up all the time because there's no processes and you have your friends working for you and everything. And the power moments, the connections that they all remember is easy. So your loyalty, your retention, because you're messing up constantly. Oh, yeah, it's different. Sorry, it didn't go out. I remember orders that we used to get and like they'd call 7 days later. Where's my ink? And we're like, I don't know. But as we started fixing things, you get rid of those power of moments, those touch points. You get rid of it because you start fixing it and then you never really talk to anybody. So it's a weird shift because it'll dissolve. Those moments are not there, right? And we went through that. And so what you have to do is you now have to, the power moment says you have to create those moments positively, right? So maybe you don't mess up, but you still call and you still say, did you get your order? They go, yeah, it came on time. And you go, I know it did, right? But you're still connecting. So that's the interesting part about that.
Oh man, I just had a really crazy thought. I'm going to go backwards a little bit, back to the ideal customer profile. I met this guy in Las Vegas. Ooh, name of the shop's on the tip of my tongue. I was like, how's your business doing? He's like, it's doing great. I'm like, really? Because everyone's having a hard year. He's like, yeah. I'm like, what did you do to have such a great year? He's like, I bought 2 Lamborghinis. No, he's like, I bought a Lamborghini. I bought a Ferrari. I'm like, you're kidding. And he's like, yeah, guess what? I'm in a Lamborghini club now and I'm in a Ferrari club now. And guess who has a lot of money? Those 2 guys. And so it was pretty interesting way to find some ideal customers. Sorry, I just had that.
May I? So our target market is graphic designers, marketing companies, things like that. So what we did is we found the graphic designer. So your graphic designer's favorite graphic designer. And we hired them to do our branding and our logo. They're called Young Jerks. Anybody heard of them? No, you wouldn't have because yeah.
Oh, graphic designers.
But like we get so many people that are like, oh my God, I saw Young Jerks did your branding. And those are ideal customers. And so they just started coming to us because Young Jerks would talk about us. So we hired our ideal customer to do our branding, which I don't know, worked out.
Same thing as like the Lamborghini. Yeah.
We got a question.
You guys are all talking about building your ideal customer profile. I'm wondering if anybody can share like the most creative way they've reached out to that customer or advertised to that customer.
I was gonna get a Lamborghini though. We like that Friends episode. You know the Friends episode where is it like a Ferrari or something, and Joey makes like he's got the cover, and he puts it over a bunch of cardboard boxes and like pretend you know kind of like.
We did. There was a year that it looked bad, and we figured we needed to land 3 big whales to get us through the year. So we went ahead and designed shirts, gave them like kind of a mood board, and then actually printed one of each of those for each of those customers and showed up. I mean, it's an old thing. We probably heard it from other people too, but showed up like, hey, this is what we can do for you. Who's doing this printing for you? As long as my print feels better, looks better, that's a real hard, conversation to have. And the only time I couldn't get over that was like, well, it's my nephew's company. All right. Well, let me know when your nephew gets another job.
I started getting. We needed a part of our roof repaired, so I needed roof quotes. And then when they'd come over, I'd just pitch them on whether or not they need new shirts, because that's what we wanted to target at the time.
Smart. So I'm glad you brought that up. We landed one roofing company, and it turns out roofing companies own other roofing companies. And a huge part of our business was roofing companies. And it's straightforward, easy. It's usually one color. And they hire new people every year. Every time there's a tornado season, hail season, whatever. Roofing companies and body shops were amazing for us.
One that worked on me was a credit company wanted to get into our space. And I don't know, you guys get offers for loans all the time? I got like 8 texts today. Like, you're approved. Yay. And so... they sent me a drone, like a DJI drone, and it was attention to Ryan. And then they called me and they're like, hey, this is Chris from Credit Key. Like, I sent you that drone. I'm like, you sent me? Yeah, that was awesome. And I talked to him and we ended up doing business with him. So like, if you really dial that in, like doing something special, like super special, or finding something about them. I've also had people send really cheesy ones that like one guy like made a fake record of like our band CD and like sent it to us, which was cool, but it was fake. And it didn't work. And so when he called, I was like, yeah, it's not
Our controller who does not drink alcohol at all, he got a whole case of liquor the other day. So that was an awesome one. Like something like that.
Yeah, we used to do that. We used to send rock wine out, and we did get one that said, I just joined AA. Stop sending me wine.
They're not around, so I'm not going to share their name, but we had a t-shirt supplier send us a live goldfish that we're fishing for new customers. It pissed off my wife. It's like, oh, thank you for the responsibility I didn't want.
We had a temp agency reach out and they sent little prescription pill bottles. It was kind of neat, like with little M&Ms in it or something. And it said something on it like, hey, we got a cure for your problems with hiring or whatever. And the team actually thought that was pretty cool. It actually worked. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the billboard story? There's a billboard story where like this company called Music Bed, they were just getting into the space and they wanted to get the top ad agency in New York. So they bought a billboard outside of his office and then just put, if you are Michael Geffen, don't read this sign, or if you aren't. And it worked, so it's like, you can really do some creative stuff, but that's a great question. Good job. Thank you. I hate firing customers. Like it's just because, like there's this book called Hug Your Haters. And it's just really hard for me to send somebody out in the world. So finding, if you need to do it, finding a nice, kind way to do it, like you said, Nate, super important. But also like with your team and yourself, just be careful with the word no. Like, just because there's ways to say, I just had a conversation with one of our sales team members, and I was like, hey, next time you say no, say yes twice first, please. Like, just figure out how to it softens it a little bit more, and just it's hard to get those customers back once they've had that bad experience, or once, you told them no, first off.
I think a part of building that customer profile is when you identify, that's why we worked in hobbies. We'd have someone come in and they needed some shirts for their kids' class or something kind of silly. And you're like, I don't know how to do this job of 12 shirts or whatever. But then ultimately they end up working for a large, like a hospital. And then they are like, thanks for doing that thing. We trust you. Like Dylan tells a story of someone who needed softball team shirts, and ultimately she worked for the Braves, and then so he landed that account when he was a Terminus. So you just never know, like that's where the hobbies are. I mean, you have to have shop minimums, like do what's right for your shop, but we found success in honoring some of those smaller orders. You just never know, especially when everyone else would say no.
You never get there.
So on that topic of saying no creatively, this happened today on the way to Ryonet. I had a customer call who is non-binary, very obviously non-binary, and was approached by the most infamous motorcycle club in the world to do shirts. And they called me and asked me, he's like, hey, so I know you're in this realm. Like, how do I handle this? Should I do it? Should I not? And the answer is like, no, you absolutely should not. This is not a good match for you. But how do we handle it? How do you say no to this very intimidating group of people? And so I told him, you've got to be very careful with your words. You're not trying to say, no, I don't want to do business with you. Phrase it as, we have a conflict of interest that could compromise your trademark, but I can recommend somebody else down the street for you. Easy, hands clean, nobody's feelings are hurt, and it's the best scenario for this particular person.
I think asking questions is a big one too. We make so many assumptions, and honestly, it would have been all fixed with one more question. It just happened the other day. We get people walking into our lobby. Someone walked in the other day and said, okay, I got sent over here for t-shirts. You guys have blank t-shirts? And now, if you guys know us, we don't sell blank t-shirts here at the warehouse. And the person who they talked to, no, we don't have those. Sorry. And I was just sitting in my office going, well, I mean, we have some t-shirts here, right? We have some, and shirt space is upstairs, and, there are blanks here. But it turned out, the whole thing, he was only looking for 2 shirts in an emergency. And it's like, we could have totally given him those 2 shirts and changed, that power of that moment or whatever it might be. And so all you have to do, because if somebody calls you and says, hey, can I get a job out tomorrow from you? You're going to go, oh, of course not. There's no way. But what if it was such a small job that you could actually do it? Things like that, right? So just ask questions. What are you doing? Absolutely. We have one in the darkroom. I mean, we do, right? Can you come over? Can we expose it together? And then we can build you one in 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, there's always, with every, you could probably say yes a lot of times.
On those same lines, we try to never be a dead end for people. So if they call us up and they need 1 shirt printed, we always will give them a recommendation. There's very, very few times where we don't have somewhere to send them afterward. So even if it's, sending them to the shop down the street that does what they're looking for, or, if we can't get it done in time, I'll send them to another shop that I know has the capacity. But I think it's really important to just keep people moving. Or like a lot of times we'll get people call us up and say, hey, I have 50 shirts that I bought already. Can I come in or have them printed? And we don't print on customer supplied apparel. But then I'll dig in a little deeper, like you were saying, and find out, oh, they haven't actually bought those shirts yet. And they were looking online to buy them, but then they're talking to me, and I'm like, well, you're going to have a hard time finding a shop that'll do it. And turns out that they actually will just order the shirts from us, and we'll end up printing them. So instead of saying no immediately, we try to dig in a little bit.
I think it's just one last thing. Sure. I think it's important to remember too. So we didn't print on customer provided shirts either. There's a number of reasons. If we washed them, we're going to have interactions with our drying chamber. But on top of that, we're not really selling screen printing. We're selling T-shirts, and we add decoration to it. And I explain that to people when they want to provide their own blanks. Like, just so we're clear here, I resell T-shirts, and the screen printing is an add-on.
Yeah, we're very clear with people when they are like, well, can I save money doing it? And I'm like, no, our profits are built into the sale of the shirts. Like, that's,
perfect. Okay. Yes.
Well, So I don't want to hijack this, but you're giving me anxiety with the don't say no. If something is, it does a disservice when people get the mindset that they're not allowed to say no to a customer. If it is not in your wheelhouse, you can do it. You have the ability to do it. But if you are not comfortable doing the thing that they want, be friends with other people in your industry that you can refer them to. Like, we specialize in athletics, and we print on hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of athletic apparel a year. If you are not set up to do that, you're gonna cry. And you shouldn't, and you shouldn't feel like, if this is not something I am familiar with, that you should always have to say yes. And that's the part that was giving me anxiety, because we're all people pleasers and we want everybody to get the thing they came in the door asking for. But there's times you have to remember that no is a complete sentence, and you don't owe them the struggle to get that thing to them. And that's kind of, I don't want anybody to go home and feel like that was the messaging, was that you can't say no.
Oh no, definitely say no.
Yeah, no is a complete sentence.
I would just try to avoid saying no immediately.
Yeah, too
like,
quick.
At some point you get, like, it's just asking a few more probing questions to make sure that it's not a right fit.
A funny way.
Like a cul-de-sac.
Kind of a joke.
Positive experience for them in that conversation, so that they want to come back to you with their next question.
Yeah, when they have something that fits what we
The
can
joke
do.
would be like, I know it's too simple, but just as an example, do you all print, athletic equipment or athletic garments? No, we don't. Oh, cool. I wasn't looking for that at all. I'm looking. It's just if you get into something too much, too quick, cool. Okay, take a quick break. All right, we're going to talk purpose and meaning here. So every company needs to grow, right? To stay alive. If you're not growing, you're dying. You've heard that. But what are you growing to be? What is your aspiration? Every company has a purpose. What is your company's purpose? You guys all have been around. I mean, some companies are meant to be a cornerstone of community. Some companies are meant to hand down to generation. Some are created for the biggest boom and the biggest stock, and then it's sold or going public, or, so what is your company about? What's the purpose, and why are you in business? We're just going to strike off this conversation here. Welcome, panelists. You guys ready for this? Dylan, I'm going to start with you. Yeah, I am going to do it. Why does Upstate merch exist? Why do you continue doing what you're doing today?
Because I've been doing it so long, I don't think I know how to do anything else or would want to do anything else. And I'm so deep that I don't think I could go in any other direction. No, honestly, I love doing it. I love screen printing. I love printing in general. I love dealing with customers. I like all the relationships we've made over the years with all the different customers and different things. And to be honest, for me too, like, I dove into industry stuff and I met some of my best friends, and I get to do this right now. The shop is running and printing shirts, and I'm here in Portland hanging out with you guys. And again, I don't ever claim to know everything, but I like to talk about it and figure it out. And if I know somebody who can help somebody else out, then I'd like to make that connection. I just love this industry. I came from band stuff, and to me, this is the closest thing that I can find that is the same feeling, same vibe, and I just love doing it. That's all. I wake up the next day to do the thing, and if I didn't fail it too hard, I'll do it again the next day, and that's all I've been doing for 20 years.
We've had a printer on last week. You guys had an awesome conversation about just how crazy kind of you do have to be in this screen printing. You have to be a little bit crazy. So that
Yeah, and it's just like what I found about the print industry is it's just we're all problem solvers. That's all it is, really. And it's such a variable driven industry. There's a million variables with everything. I could have a shop with all the same equipment and same inks and everything, and John can have a shop with all the same inks and then same everything, and we have two totally different problems and challenges, and the prints won't look the same, and every day it's just problem solving to get the job done. And when we get it done, we like it, and that's it. I mean, it's to me, honestly, the reason why I started Upstate and did what I did is I had nothing else to do, and I worked in the movie theater and Sears and installed appliances and all these different things. And then I started printing shirts for the band, and then I was like, hey, I can sell these to other bands. And I just literally never stopped. I never thought that I would do this. I never thought anything about it. It just turned into a business, and I'm just doing it till now.
I have a master's degree in curriculum and instruction. I worked for a curriculum publisher in sales enablement. I could be making a ton of money right now, and I still choose to be in this industry. So either you're in it from the get-go or you choose to be in it. I think that we're all here for the same purpose. I think it's artistic and hands-on and problem-solving. It's like the perfect combination of addiction? We're just addicted?
I ended up in the same way that everybody else did. The first time I saw a shirt that was printed in art class that I wasn't a part of, I was like, holy shit, you can make something you can sell a store at this. And then I started my own screen print shop. It's all punk rock. Ink buckets are open. I'm buying used stuff. There's dust everywhere. I'm like, look at this shithole, but I can turn out this great shirt. There's a lot of novelty to it. But then I started to develop just the passion around it after I read a book by Henry David Thoreau called Walden. And in the book, he talks about just purpose in life. And I started looking at like the things my parents wanted me to grow up to be, the things like an accountant, something like that. And there just wasn't anything to show at the end of the day. And I haven't read Walden in years and years, but he talks about a kind of a parable or a fable of these prisoners being you're keeping them busy all day by having them throw rocks over a wall one day. Then the next day, go back and throw rocks over the wall the next day. But at the very least, they had something to show for it. There was something there. Having at the end of each of my day something that I could see and handle, like I did that. This is going to go out in the world. Somebody famous is probably going to wear this one day. This is going to end up on a lot of girls' floors. We go from other dudes that wear them, going on tour. And then eventually seeing like, oh, Rihanna's wearing my t-shirt. Holy shit. That's cool. Like you just get this great magical feeling out of it. And I'm perpetually the bass player. I'll do anything. But I find more joy. What fills my cup is supporting something else, another part of something. I don't really want to be the front man. I'm not as charismatic as Ryan. I'm just passionate about what I want to do. And this gave me more meaning than any of the other businesses I did. I used to own a skateboard shop. And to me, what filled my cup in that was I'm keeping these kids off drugs. I'm giving them skateboards, and I'm an adult that's saying like, you don't have to do that. Like, this is cooler. Like, you don't need to smoke weed to be cool. Like, and nothing against anybody that smokes weed. Like, that was a long time ago, but it smells like weed. Yeah. But I felt like my purpose there was, oh, I know. That's the smell of wash. That's the smell of the West Coast. But I felt I was doing something, but it was really intangible, and all those kids grew up, and there's nothing to show for it. But soon, a couple of years into opening a screen print shop, I couldn't walk around my town and not see shirts that I printed. After I closed my shop, for a couple of years later, I go into Disneyland. I'm like, I printed that. I saw 3 shirts at Disneyland that I printed. And that's the reward I got out of it, is something that I can handle. I like practical skills. I excel at practical skills. So this gave me an arena to excel. And then over the past, how many years has Ryonet been around? 20 years? It became welcoming and fun. I have no social life outside of this anymore. There's some bands that I know now, but in my town that I've lived in for half my life, I honestly really don't have any friends there. My friends are in this industry, and that's the last thing I expected. But that was just my little spiel on there. Now you can talk about real stuff.
Well, I was going to say, so I don't own a business, but I kind of feel like my role within rock is I'm kind of like my own business. So I'm kind of like creating my own customers, creating my own experience for them. And it's very interesting to me. I don't have a master's degree, but I did spend $45,000 on an audio engineering degree that I have not utilized outside of a hobby. So I could be working at, whatever, Universal or Disney and recording music for people and wrapping wires and spending, countless hours mixing music, which I enjoy doing. But with this, I am able to help people realize their dreams and like help them like build their businesses. And I get like so much personal joy out of that. Because I mean, there's times that people will reach out to Rock and they'll be like, an established company, they have 10 autos and they want to like replace a machine, or maybe they want to give us a try or something. And that's all fun and stuff. And some people want to buy 5 machines, and that's great. Obviously money's great and that's all cool. But the personal joy that I get is the manual screen printer that will reach out and be like, dude, we're spending like 18 hours a day printing. This is just brutal. My shoulders can't handle it. My wrists can't handle it. It's like my family doesn't see me anymore. And when I get to that person, their first automatic, and I get that call 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, they're telling me these stories of like, I remember this one specifically, this company in California called Spinning Ink. And he called me and he's like, dude, you know what this machine is? I mean, prints t-shirts? I don't know what you're asking me. He's like, it's a time machine. I get my time back. I'm able to make things happen faster. I'm able to spend time with my wife. I'm able to take the weekend off. And those people that I sell machines to, I get the most personal joy out of, even though it's a very small piece of their business and their life and what they're doing. Being even somewhat involved in that, just sometimes I like get emotional about it. Like people like call me like, oh my God, this has changed my life. And I'm like, dude, I'm so happy I could be anything to this for you. This is great. And so I think regardless if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, ink genius, I think it's about figuring out a way to find joy in the thing you do and cherishing it. And so like, I tell people all the time, I tell my kids and my friends and stuff, like they ask me what I do for a living. I'm like, I don't even think I really have a job. It doesn't even feel like a job. I get to talk to cool people that are using cool machines to make cool art and put it on t-shirts so I can go around and do whatever they need to do. And it doesn't feel like a job. It's incredible. And I wouldn't trade it for the world.
We were talking about this on an episode recently. I think kind of the one Brandon was talking about. It was Dennis with Axelrad, and we were talking about how you can print shirts for, a kid's school event or something, and the kids don't actually really care about the shirt. They just are purple so that the kids don't get lost in a crowd and, they don't lose a child. But then there's the band shirts that you print, or the shirts for the comic book shop, or the shirts for the movie thing, or, a concert or whatever it is. And that whoever buys that shirt, it's like, it's memorable to them, or it's something that's important to them, or it's showing off their personality or who they are as a person. Not all of us at screen printers, a lot of us wear blank t-shirts because we don't want to have anything printed on them. But most of the time, like I wore my Balrog shirt yesterday because I love Lord of the Rings. So like if I'm walking in public, people are like, oh, I know that dude's nerdy as hell and he's into Lord of the Rings. That shows who I am as a person. And that stuff's super important. And one of the things we were talking about in the episode is like when I was, 15 years old or something, I bought a Thursday hoodie and I wore that thing until it was a black hoodie. I wore it till it was basically gray and the zipper had broken off and all these other things. I kept it, and my daughter just turned 14 and she wanted it, and now she wears it a couple times a week. I was like, that thing is like 30 years old and it's worn and loved and whatever. And like, how would you have known that the print shop who just did this white print over the zipper, that was going to be meaningful to me for so long, and now to my daughter, which is huge to see her wear. It really warms my heart. But that being said, to kind of what Brandon started this conversation about is I, on the show, always used to ask 2 presses or 10 presses, and to all these other print shops. And almost always the answer is 2 presses, because if they get above 2 presses or 3 presses or 10 presses or whatever it is, they always remember that time when they had 2 to 3 presses where they were, really doing the kind of work that they wanted to do. They had a smaller crew and the culture was better. And they liked doing what they were doing because they were focused on the niche market that they wanted to print for. I feel like some of these large, huge corporations that are printing the purple shirts for the kids so they don't get lost, or they're focused on all this other stuff. And there's not as much, I mean, sorry to the people, but it doesn't seem like there's as much soul in it. So my goal for the rest of my career is to have the 3 presses, and my team of, 10 to 15 people. And we're going to focus and print on the, what did you guys call it? The target person, Sally with the dog, or whatever the hell you were saying. I just want to focus on that stuff because it's meaningful to me, and I get to print cool art, and I get to work with the clients that I want to work with, and I get to work with the bands that I want to work with. And it's fun, and I get to know that the people wearing it love it and like it. And I don't know, I just enjoy the art and the craft and the hangs, and I get paid for it. So
I like the cultural aspect of what we do. For the past 45 years, the most affordable and most common way to identify what culture you belong to, whether it's your identity, the music you're into, the movies you're into, is T-shirts. I'm walking through the airport yesterday through PDX. I have one speed. It's Chicago production speed. I move quickly through airports, and I'm moving towards that moving walkway. There's 2 guys standing in the corner just talking, both wearing black T-shirts, and one guy's got the band Sleep hat. And I'm just walking by. The guy looks up and is like, as I'm walking by, like, yeah, we're into the same shit. We'd be friends. I know that, but I got to go. I mean, we're able to identify what society we're from by T-shirts. There's DTF. There's other types of technologies out there. They're going to be cheaper. The screen printed shirts are always going to have more value. You know this. You go on eBay. There's $800 Guns N' Roses shirts from like 15 years ago. This has value. It's just like a screen printed poster over a digital poster. And that's something we get to be a part of. I mean, I love the fact that you don't just push a button and it comes out. We have a skill set. Not everybody can do it.
Free for all questions. Anything that's on your mind, anything that got stimulated from that. Kevin, you want to talk?
I've done that before. Yeah, I think the biggest thing about this industry and what I do is being able to help customers, right? So when I give a screen making course and then I see that same customer a year or 2 down the road, and they tell me how much that helped them in their business and how many less problems that they've had, that's really the main reason why I enjoy doing what I do, is being able to hear those stories, being able to help customers and, help their businesses grow, better quality. Dylan said something today as well, as he had a job that they did previously. They got the equipment from us, the LTS, and then they realized there were graphics in little details inside this print that they didn't even know were in that print before. So when I hear things like that and I can help increase that quality, it really feels good.
I mentioned earlier that my first job that I made, we were terrible at everything. It was just me. So it was me. I was terrible at everything. And yeah, the royal we. And I think from that experience, I learned, like, one, I love making stuff. That's it. It comes down to making stuff. Either it's making a business, making a team that enjoys being with each other, making the products that we make. It's just really fun to put something down that is going to last a really long time. Hopefully, if I didn't mess up the print or the cure or something like that. But it's that act of creating that always brings me joy. And that's why the other thing that I really love about this is being able to surround myself with people that have the same desires, other problem solvers, other people that are creative, that want to create things. And yeah, it was only recently that I realized that we're manufacturing. Like, I didn't realize that we're a manufacturing company. I just thought, like, oh, we print T-shirts. I couldn't really describe what it was. I thought we were advertising or something, but somebody's like, no, you're manufacturing. I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
anytime you fill out a form for the IRS, the only thing you can select is manufacturing.
I know. I would look through that forever. I'd be like, that doesn't describe me. I don't know what I am. So, yeah, it makes it a lot easier once you know you're manufacturing. But it also, I don't know, it's kind of like humbling to be like, oh, yeah, we are manufacturers and we really are good at it and we like doing it. That's my why.
Hi, I'm Colin. Oh,
You don't have to stand it.
I do like you, Kevin. I don't. Yeah. My why. So I kind of fell into this as a lot of us do. Came back from little school in Kansas with my kid's mom. Oh, hello. Is this better or is this better? Came back from a little school in Kansas with my kid's mom. Just needed to find work. Didn't really like working at Target. And a friend said, hey, there's this screen print shop over in Renton. They're looking for a press op. I'm like, ooh, I like this. I've had friends who wanted to design t-shirts. I grew up in the era of Billabong and Town and Country and Thriller Gorilla and all these amazing graphics that I'm like, I really like this art medium of designing and putting this cool image on a t-shirt. So I'm like, this is going to be really neat. I have an artistic background. I have a technical background. So I get over there and I learn how to, mess around with t-shirts and print t-shirts. And I found that I really liked it from that artistic point of view, where it meets the problem solving point of view and the technical point of view. For me, that just jived. That clicked. Problem solving. Absolutely. And then I really like, and I geek out with Alan at 12 ounce about this all the time. It's reproduction. My goal is to reproduce what I see on the substrate of choice. So I get to go, thinking hat, and take that and apply that. So it's something that my brain can just doodle on and think about and have fun. But I really jived with that. I really enjoyed that. And then I'd like to help people. I am someone who genuinely likes to help people, and I like to help businesses succeed. I like to go into your shop, work with you and see everybody elevate. Been doing that since before I worked at QCM. So there were some message boards back in the day, got on there, shared information back and forth, ended up going to work for an ink company, problem solving there, just having a lot of fun. But for me, why I like this is that mixture of art and science, and then the problem solving. And then from there, going out and helping people, educating people, helping them to become what they aspire to be, and for them to be able to reach that next level of wherever it is, just that artistic ability, that technical ability, the shop's ability. Yeah, so that's kind of my why. I just love t-shirts, man.
Colin also has some of the best educational videos on YouTube.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My favorite.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's been really nice to hear that.
So my question for you guys would be, why are you doing this? And I ask people that a lot. When I first got into it, the why was, I can wrap my head around this. I can grow with this. Yeah. But some of the questions should be, am I starting this to hand this down to my kids? Am I building this to sell and move on to another business? Am I doing this so I can buy the building that I'm in and make money off the real estate? So there's not a perfect answer for everybody, but I mean, it would be awesome. I'm not going to make you guys do it, but if Brandon wants to get each of your whys, like, why are you in this? Were you attracted to it, or do you have an in plan?
Hello, this is Juan. Just hearing all the story here about inspiration, about purpose. So I would just try to talk a little about myself. I'm a mechanical engineer. So I graduate in 2028. So I spent like 15 years working in the industry, medical devices, all that's different stuff, right? So like 10 years ago, I started seeing some videos from Ryan, so I started seeing the videos, like something curious for me, and then I started like trying to do something. I create my exposure units. I remember the first time that I developed my screen and I printed very, very bad printing. But once I lift the screen, so I saw the ink pass through, like it was like, what is this? I mean, like, so I start like as a business, as a hobby, start my family business, but I still working because it was hard to, like leave the salary and then come to this business. It's like hard. I mean, I had my wife, 3 kids, but somehow about the inspiration. So I saw regarding my experience in the industry. So I saw the opportunity with the device that we developed. And from there, we saw like a good option. So, okay, maybe there is a good point to leave the job and come back, in this industry, which is, as mentioned, I have spent like 10 years trying to move from the other side to this one. So it's really incredible to be here. Like I'm sitting there and I see these guys and have learned a lot of them from their videos, you know what I mean? So like I'm here with them. So it's slightly strange for me, but that's about purpose, inspiration that you guys, I'm assuming there's a lot of people over there in the world, learning from you, learning for your kind of work. That's what I would add.
Hi everyone, I'm Josh. My why is education. I work for the local school district here at an academy that focuses on real life job skills. So screen printing is actually going to be a student-run business at our school next year. So my why is being able to show up every day and to teach our students something that they can take with them for the rest of their life. You know, not only these skills as a screen printer, but we can also kind of create a hybrid setting in our work site where it's a mixture of a classroom and, you know, a job. And we can kind of teach them not only what to expect as an employee, but what to expect from their boss. You know, what should you look for when you come to work every day? What to expect, but then also how can you improve yourself and give them the opportunity to make mistakes and to coach them through it and to teach them, you know, how to be a productive member of society. And screen printing isn't the only thing we do. We also make dog treats, which is what I've been doing mostly. This year will be the first time that screen printing will be a full-time job for us. So
we had someone on the show who runs a screen printing shop in a high school in Minnesota. I can connect you with them.
Awesome.
I can send you the shirt. It's a shirt show episode. And also, also Printing United will give you a free membership for you and your students, which is access to all of their online courses as well. Anyone in education.
that is amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. I know all sorts of stuff.
Okay.
And it's until someone says something and I'm like, I don't know I know it until someone says something and I'm like, you know what? I know this random fact. So yeah, I've got a card. We'll talk.
If anyone wants to share, we want to hear from more of you. So here you are.
My name is Katie. I own a small shop in Tigard, Oregon, and it's a Pacific Northwest apparel company in screen printing. This is not really the target audience for this, but my why is I love the art side. I love creating things that I connect with, like motorcycle shirts and band shirts are cool, but I want to like make Pacific Northwest and girly things too. But I do this because of for women in general. When I was born, which was like a little while ago, women couldn't own businesses. And I've gotten to know a bunch of women in business over this journey. And so now I do this as an example for other women that you can still own a business and as an example for my daughter. So, and you can have a credit card and do all the things that we couldn't do. And I'm not that old, but it blows my mind to think that my mom at my age wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now.
You're also very good at building a community. So make sure you give yourself
yourself credit for that too. Thank you.
I'm Ben. I own a small little shop, Poor Kiwi Co. Maybe some of you have seen me. No, kiwi is a flightless bird. I'll explain the story later. Anyways, we've all kind of alluded to it, but one of the main reasons that I'm into this is the community. All of the people that I've met, all of these people, just going to shows. Ryonet, being in proximity, I only live about a mile from here, but like being so close to all of these people and having the relationships that I've built and stuff like that, like it just sort of cemented me into this as I continue my journey growing my shop and stuff like that. And all of you people, so please come say hi and we'll trade info and all that. But that's like one of the main things for me.
Yeah, I met Ben at a church show event, and then another event, and now it's like if he's not there, if you're not at the next event, I'm calling out. You're right, pretty sick. Are you on vacation? You can't take vacations.
But also people like Ben too are great, like wanting to get involved and I don't know, I enjoy your conversation. Thank you.
I think my why has changed many times. It started out, I just needed a job. And then it turned into quality. We wanted to be the best quality shop. And then it's most recently evolved into like customer experience and making things easy for people because everybody's busy and life is hard. And so how do we make it just seamless and easy and the place that people walk into and everybody knows your name. And so it makes you feel really special. And so that's probably the biggest piece for me, but also like it's incredibly exciting to like go through town and see stuff that you've printed and people are wearing it proudly. And so, that's a big part of it. But now as we continue to transition, it's now becoming like, more of a building a legacy. And how does that look as we pass that along? So yeah, I think it keeps changing all the time, but I think we all seem to have like similar whys for sure.
I feel like anyone who made the effort to come to this today probably has similar whys.
I like that your why has changed. I mean, that's true to business. It's evolution of business.
Yeah.
If you don't notice, I'm trying to get some folks to speak because really you're why we're here, right?
Thank you. Mike, I'm here in support of my son, who is actually not here. He's supposed to be here, but he's sick. My wife and I, and he's a graduate of high school, and he's a fashion designer. He had designed a hoodie, and he wanted to print on it. And so he kind of turned our garage he bought all this older print stuff off of Facebook, and is printing on there, and he's working on a T-shirt to design, and hopefully we can figure out how to, after he designs it, we can figure out how to get it printed and know what we're doing. So while he's doing school and things, Ma and I are having to kind of maybe start understanding how to print and business stuff. So
Do you like
we're here. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you do
Uh,
other than that?
you can do it. That's right.
What a good job.
With him right now, it's just mostly encouraging and like trying
What
to.
do you do for like a day job?
Oh, a day job. Oh, I work in television.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So how is this in contrast to that?
Very different. Yeah.
That's a new segment where we talk about other segments. A lot of us come from band merchandise, stuff like that. The growing segment is streetwear and independent fashion designers. And it's interesting to see that develop. Ryan and I have a mutual friend. I think all of us have a mutual friend that he was a customer of mine at my skate shop when he was 14. He wanted to start a snowboarding brand. Now he's a pretty influential screen printer at a company called Superior Ink, and I believe Ryan's probably, are you guys business partners to some degree?
All made.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so he went from a kid that just wanted to have a snowboard brand because he liked hanging up in the mountains to running a very big business. His business currently is in the old Apple building south of Colorado Springs.
That's right. What's the name of the company again?
Superior Ink.
Okay, cool. Right on. Nice.
Anyone else would like to speak? You're welcome to. Yeah. Cool.
All right. Hi, I'm Sarah. We are from Whidbey Island. My crew's here with me today. I think a lot of all the similar whys, and I really love, we're on an island, so it's super small community. And I think that is probably the best part about it for me personally is getting to cultivate the relationships with my clients that I have and helping their businesses. It's been so community oriented for me that I got voted in to be the president of our chamber. And not only that, but like the art and science part of it, I think it's like the coolest combination. And thanks.
I'm seeing like a trend. It's like a combination of education and community, and then it kind of also seems almost like nurturing. Like I think about being a parent, and like a lot of the stuff I'm hearing are people talking about like growth and learning and becoming better. It's like that's what we do as parents to our kids. We try to teach them how to be a better version of themselves than they are now. And I think we all should be always doing that for ourselves and trying to be a better person than we were yesterday. And it kind of seems like that's like an overarching trend among everyone. It's like community, education, and like support, which I think is a really amazing part of this industry. So,
The opposite from what it was 15, 20 years ago.
Gatekeepers.
Yeah.
I used to be a dick. I was just about to say dickhead. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jerry. I live pretty close by here. I live in the Hood River area, and I haven't really started my shop yet, but I have the equipment, and I've been just sort of self-teaching, watching YouTube videos and things like that. In the 90s, when I went to school and graduated, I was in graphic design and photography. So this is obviously a pretty good match in that way. Since then, I've opened a couple of gyms and a gymnastics gym that we run a pretty big summer camp there. So we end up teaching the kids a lot of different things. So I've thought that we ended up taking over a warehouse space that was right next to the gymnastics gym because a dog trainer moved in next door and brought all these aggressive dogs next door to a kids gym. And the dogs would get out and be running through the parking lot and, create chaos. So the moment that they wanted to leave, I just took over the rental space just to make sure no one ever moved into my parking lot ever again. And now it's become the screen printing shop. So we're just getting going on it. But my initial idea with it was just to be able to print for my gyms because I'm sending out t-shirts so much for that. But there's not a lot of options for like small run stuff. I'm not looking for it to be like a real big business. It's more side quest and fun stuff. But yeah.
You're screwed.
I have like
Make sure you put your stuff is in order in the system, or else you will never print your own stuff. That's the only way. We'd be like, we'll do shop shirts next week, and then other stuff would come up. So we would just have to put it in as if it was in order.
Right. That's good advice.
It's a lot of work for the small orders.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. That's why you start getting into the bigger orders. So it makes
But
it worth
I'm
it.
so ADD that I feel like 50 shirts and I'm already
glad to have.
Right.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you're ADD or on the spectrum somewhere, you're in the right place.
My reason is completely different. I needed gas money to get our band from one show to the next show. So we sold t-shirts to get gas money so we could keep going. And that's what started the passion. So I found a shop, started working at a shop, worked my way up from being a screen washer to now I run the place. So it's super fun journey, and it's not where I thought I was going to be. I came from building adventure vans, and I used to work at a skate park too and ran skate parks. So I love t-shirts, and it just lined up. So that's what I do now.
All right, I don't want to leave anyone out. So if you're feeling, me, Allie, no, me. Everyone knows my why. Why not? That's why. No, I'm kidding. You ready?
So my why has changed drastically since I started. So I would say when I first started, my why was probably ego. I liked my art. I'd been making art since I was 16, and I wanted to see it on shirts, and I wanted to sell it to people. So that was kind of where I started. I got taught in a co-op space, which is very community oriented. And I had previously been into a lot of different types of community type situations, but had never really like combined that sort of thing. And basically through the co-op, I kind of learned more about the art community that I was living in. I became a good part of it now. And I was able to continue to give back through that community. And that has become my why. We did a big screen print event where we raised $14,000 for local charities, and that's become my why. It wasn't how I started, and it's kind of interesting how it's gone from ego-driven to community-driven just because of the community that does exist. And once you become a big part of that, like you have to give back to it in some way, and that is the rewarding part for me.
I taught a workshop in Mexico City last year, and like I was there for a different purpose, but somebody asked me to come,
speak at the workshop, offered to like show me around Mexico, speaking no English whatsoever. But like, for the actual presentation, we found a translator, but I read the class completely wrong. So there was quite a few women there, and the reality of screen printing is that the majority of people in screen printing is Hispanic women. Whether in North America, it's mostly Hispanic women. So I just thought like, oh, they must want to build a career in the U.S. And so when you go to the U.S., this. So when you go to the U.S., they're like, well, that's not why I want to do it. I'm like, well, why are you interested in screen printing? Like, because I create art and I want to see it on T-shirts. And that was the exact same answer for them. Like, oh, wow, I'm such an asshole. I didn't even think about that. Like, yeah, this is fantastic. All right, cool. What do you want to do? And that was, I'm hearing more of that. But then like out of every handful of those, one goes nuts and becomes a clothing brand. So it's a fun evolution to watch. Anybody else want this thing? Anybody beatbox?
I hope many of you are going to be with us tomorrow. We're going to do a whole main event, food, band, rummage sale, a bunch of things. It's our big thing. But this went really, really great. Can you give everybody, can we just do a big round of applause for everybody here? And
yeah. It is cool the takeaways from hearing your whys and just the passion for sharing, passion for community. When we got into it, I think we went to John's shop and he told us to go f*** off. Because we couldn't get any help. Brandon and I, we printed our own brand shirts too, and we did make gas money to go to the next event. And that turned into this. And so it's really cool to see hear everyone's story, and just even looking out and seeing the shirts that you printed and that you're wearing your stuff is really awesome to see. So it's gonna be a fun week. Thank you guys for sharing and all the great questions. So have a good time.